Testing, testing.
Good morning. Okay, so could we go ahead and you begin us with a pledge of allegiance?
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, which under God, teaches.
Okay, and then could we please have roll call?
President Santianes,
Here.
Vice President Estrada, Secretary Dockstader,
Present.
Treasurer Gutierrez, Director Plancarte,
Good morning, all. Here.
Director Kelly, Director Tortes, Director Aguilar,
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Director Cardenas,
Good morning, Alex Cardenas, President.
Director Perez,
Here.
ex officio Samantha Arthur.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comments? The public comments time is reserved for comments on any matter
In progress.
not on the agenda item. California law prohibits members of the board from taking action on matters not on the agenda. Remarks shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. When you speak, state your name for the record prior to the providing your comments. Please address your comments to the chair. Okay, thank you. Then we will move on. Do we have any board member comments? So this is a time set aside for board members of the board to share their thoughts, concerns regarding general authority matters not on the agenda, ask questions of staff, and request that items be added to a future agenda. The Brown Act expressly prohibits lengthy board member discussion of matters not on the agenda. Do I have any board member comments?
Madam Chair. If I may.
Director Press.
So, I've had the pleasure, displeasure of sitting on HUMD for the last 4 to 5 years now. And as a result of sitting on the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which represents counties of San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, LA. And I think that's it for right now. It'll come to me if there's another. You know, to the AB 617 communities that were selected, in which there's funding for underserved areas to deal with environmental justice issues. It's been advancing the effort around dust suppression and mitigation around the Salton Sea, to the point where at one point there were no air monitors or very minimal air monitors in the region. And now there seems to be an emphasis of air monitors throughout the South Sea area, including, I understand there's collaboration with Imperial Air Quality Management District as well. And so that's a good thing, obviously, because that's something that the community has been asking for a long time, knowing that there have been concerns around nosebleeds, right, respiratory illnesses, things of that nature. Now, we still have a ways to go, and there's a lot more definition. For example, folks are also asking AQMD, Air Quality Management District, South Coast, around issues of pesticide regulation. Well, there's only certain things that AQMD can do and that other departments do. But I guess what I'm getting at is that organizations like AQMD and CARB, California Association, California Air Resources Board, rather, are there to try to figure out how they can work together to ensure that ultimately we do suppress that dust. Now, there's been advancements with AQMD. I've noticed that over time. There's more to be done. And just recently, I was appointed to CARB. Just yesterday, I was going through the Senate Rules Committee line of questioning for my appointment. I guess that's going to happen sometime later this month. And one of the questions that kind of stuck in my head, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they asked the question does CARB engage at all in the Salton Sea? And I've only been on CARB for maybe a couple months, but I've only been 2 actual meetings. And in the short time that I've been there, we haven't had any discussion on the Salton Sea. So I want to raise that to our attention because I think it's going to be important that not only AQMD, South Coast, but as well, obviously you have Imperial, Air Quality Management District, and now you have CARB that should be playing that role, especially because that's the entity that's statewide that receives the funding at the federal level, that works with South Coast Air Quality Management District, that works with Imperial Air Quality Management District, so that there's more of an alignment, especially when we talk about capacity, when we talk about future services and programs, when we talk about resources, funding, that's all critical. So I've only had 2 meetings. I'm still kind of learning, and I just want to flag that for you all so that we could figure out what a strategy is going to look like moving forward as we're talking about, our 10-year plan, when we talk about the North Lake Pilot Project, when we talk about all our different projects around the Salton Sea. So those are my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any other board member comments? Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. So there are 3 items on the consent calendar. Would any board member like any item pulled, or is there a motion to approve? Are there any public comments on the consent calendar items?
Not at this time.
Okay, could I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to motion that we approve as submitted, the consent calendar.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second. Madam Clerk, would you please do roll call?
President Santillanes,
Yes.
Secretary Dockstader,
Aye.
Director Plancarte,
Aye.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
Director Cardenas,
Yes.
Director Perez.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Okay, so on the consent calendar. we have So do you want me to go through the consent calendar?
No.
No?
We just approved.
Okay. All right, so we have next on our agenda, we have Colorado River Commitments Agreement. SEIS, EIS. Is there any discussion regarding the assessment of impacts to the Salton Sea and region and plan for mitigation?
Madam President, I have a brief presentation to share with the board. This is an item that's been discussed by the board for some months. This is an item that's been discussed by the board for some months. It's an issue that arose mid last year when we learned about action proposed to be taken on the Colorado River to conserve water that might have an impact on this area. And we have been working with our state and federal partners to understand what those impacts might be. I would like to just kind of interject as a part of this conversation. There is a memo in your packet. There's also a memo from Ms. Moore that discusses in more detail some of the EIS issues that are being concerned. What we're looking for today really is just an acknowledgement that the comments for the EIS, the long range plan, the post 26 plans are due in August, and our next board meeting is not until September. Those comments are going to be more procedural. They're not going to be with respect to any plan or implementation. And I just want the acknowledgement of this board that staff will submit the comments subject to the executive committee review. And then as the process moves forward and more substantive comments are developed as part of the process, those would be discussed and presented to the board. I also just wanted to take this time to briefly touch on Supervisor Perez's comment. I think they are important, and I think they're integral to an understanding of the impacts at and around the sea. The state recently completed a monitoring implementation plan for the Salton Sea activities. And I believe that it's long been a concern of mine and of the authority as to how these different agencies, whether it's CARB, South Coast, Imperial County Air Pollution, and others that are responsible for monitoring and policing activities at and around the sea, relate to one another. And my concern has particularly been the hole in the donut, the things that we don't know, the things that where there is no overlap. So what I will do also, Supervisor Perez, for our next board meeting, I'll work with our state partners and agendize an update on the monitoring implementation plan with a discussion on carbon AQMD. So that we're on record to probably be the shortest board meeting that this authority has ever held. But as I mentioned, there are memos in your packet that explain where we're at on this. And all we're really looking for is board direction to complete the comments and get them submitted by August 15th.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I make an inquiry?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Alex Cardenas with IID, Director IID and member of Salton Sea Authority. So I just think in terms of clarity and providing direction, my assumption is that the executive committee would help you with those comments, Mr. O'Dowd?
That is correct. The comments would not be submitted without the executive committee input. And we're happy to circulate to any other board member who would be interested in collaborating in that work. But
And
as I said, my expectation is I'm going to let Ms. Moore touch on this. I see she's sitting at the ready, and she is directly engaged in this process, and so I'm going to let her touch on this briefly.
Good morning, directors. And so Reclamation just had its first public listening sessions on the EIS process. And so the memo that you have in your packet lays out what the timeline will be for that past this commenting period. But I think it's just important to distinguish between the comments that we put in on and this might help clarify the comments that we had prepared on the draft SEIS and the comments for this. We are at the very beginning of the process in the case of the EIS, which starts with what's called public scoping. And so these are the listening sessions that I attended the one on, I guess it was Monday. And what they're really asking for, and it's detailed in your memo, is, okay, what issues should we be considering when we're talking about post 2026 Colorado River operations? And so there is not a specific proposal on the table as there was with the draft SEIS, which was a short range proposal. This is really the very beginning. And part of and I think the most probably salient thing for this board to consider commenting on is one of the things that they want to want comment on is, what issues should we consider with respect to the affected environment from these decisions, right? At which we can kind of pull the lens back, I think, from the comments before and just sort of say, well, we are the affected environment. Here are the things that we believe you need to consider from an environmental justice perspective, the perspective of the tribe, air quality, and those sorts of things. So sort of a higher level, not as detailed comments. As the process plays out, it's important to put the comments in because we want to be on record saying this community, this region needs to be included in the scope of the department's analysis for impacts, right? And so, but we're at the very beginning. The draft SEIS, we were commenting on very specific water conservation alternatives. So we don't have those yet. This is really kind of setting the stage for the development of all of those things post 2026, kind of including how long will these guidelines last, but they could last for some time. So that's how it will, I think, hit on some of the same points that were in the draft comments that you approved for the draft SEIS, but it's really a little bit less specific because we're not commenting on a particular water conservation proposal.
Madam Chair, if I may make another inquiry.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so just back to just process, then the executive committee would work with Mr. Odell and Ms. Lisa Moore and provide some comments prior to the August 15th. We're obviously not meeting, but it's also my understanding that the executive committee would be made up of Torres Martinez, Madam Chair Santillanes, and then also Vice Chair Estrada from CVWD. And that group or that working group then would be responsible for developing those comments. Is that the way I'm understanding it, Mr. Odell?
That's what we're recommending. That's what we're recommending. Certainly open to other suggestions.
Okay. No, I'm in favor of it. I would just ask if there is an opportunity to circulate the document among the other three parties without, violating any type of Brown Act. I think it would be important just because of the sensitivity of some of the negotiations that's taking place along the Colorado River. But Madam Chair, I am in support of the process, but just kindly asking that document be circulated among the other representatives just to ensure that there is alignment.
That
Yes.
is clearly understood.
I think that would be great.
Madam Chair, I have a question, please.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Director Aguilar from the Water District. So first, I agree with all the previous comments by Director Cardenas, but I also am curious, once we submit comments by the 15th, since this is really in scoping, will we have other opportunities later in the process to continue to augment those?
You will. And so the benefit of this is really you want to state as early as possible what we expect, the expectation that the region will be considered in this document. What Reclamation will do is they will get all of these public scoping comments, and then they actually by law have to respond to them, which is nice. And it was so then that scoping helps determine what's called the purpose and need of the action that they're going to take to manage the Colorado River. It then also helps determine the alternatives that are considered. And once they do all of that, purpose, need, alternatives, it now starts to look a little bit more like the draft SEIS short term that we were considering. That will be released as a draft for public comment again. So that's kind of more like what we just were looking at on the short term. So you get a relatively full-blown draft document to comment on. But with all things like this, it is always better to not kind of complain about being left out. If they were to do that in the big document, it's, you want to be able to say, hey, we told you during the scoping process that our expectation was that you would consider these particular things. And so, yes, it's important to do this right now, but you will get, you will have a commenting option or opportunity. And that timeline is in the memo of when they anticipated. I think it's, well, the final, they're looking at mid 2026. I think they're hoping to have a draft. I want to say it's in 2024 was what they outlined. They are also, they didn't say specifically what it will be, but they're framing a new or I think expanded stakeholder participation process for the EIS that they plan to roll out as well. But we have this opportunity now. We'll have another opportunity once there's a full document, next year or the year after that. But it is a long, that's
Yeah, I know.
won't complete until.
I just wanted to clarify that. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
So with that direction, we can move on.
Yeah, just very quickly, Madam Chair and colleagues. I am taking a look once again at this letter that was sent to us regarding concerns by these regarding the North Lake pilot
That's it.
demonstration project.
That's the next,
Oh, okay.
if I could, and I apologize for interrupting.
yeah, go
We
ahead.
can deal with that under projects,
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
if that, I apologize.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue. So we have 4C. SB 583. Oh, yes.
Oh, there's information in the board packet.
Okay, so we have
We
a
do. have covered.
request. Okay,
Eric Ray, Executive Director, Los Amigos de la Comunidad, also been involved in the Salton Sea and environmental issues for long. And a couple of answers, yeah, CARB is becoming more involved and mainly because of AB 617. So it is a huge success, Chairman. That is a huge success of AB 617 is bringing more focus to the Salton Sea. And as far as the monitors are great, but if you don't put an action plan, they're worthless at the end. And we have a lot of data. We have not set a baseline, which I've asked for a generation of my life for a baseline of what actually, where we're at before and where we're going to be later. Again, a failure on many ends of government agencies and our end as well as advocates to truly understand those impacts. But I'm going to go back to when they first came. This was in October, November, when we knew about the 250,000 additional acre feet per year. And IAD only passed it to accept the $250 million, including some millions for Torres Martinez on it. And a 3-2 vote, it was a split vote. Chairman Cardenas at that time and Gonzalez voted against it because it was too wide open. It was too many promises. We've already had these promises of $250 to $400 million from the government before. It's money owed to the Salton Sea and the community and the people impacted by it before. It was a bad deal. To this day, it's still a bad deal. There was even one director who said there's nothing negative to it. I mean, how ignorant can we be? If you're going to take 250,000 additional acre feet per year, accelerating the receding of the Salton Sea, how can you say there's nothing negative to it? I mean, it's just simple. At that point, though, there was outrage here at the Salton Sea Authority. Supervisor Perez was one of them, saying, what are we here for if they're circumventing even what the Salton Sea Authority is attempting to accomplish? And Director O'Dowd also had a very good challenge to the prognosis of the California Natural Resources Agency as to how much it would be receding and how they made those metrics and what they were. I have not seen anything back up after that. We need to challenge that. And we need to be able to, you as an authority, that's your job, right? Unfortunately, I'm not at the point that I can do it, hire the consultants I need, but I'm hoping that's the type of action you want to do. I know it's multi-agency and you tread on people's authorities and you don't want to be, but you're all here for one thing, Salton Sea Authority and how it impacts the people in the region around us. I just want to leave that for you. Put aside your agency sensitivities and think collectively for all of us. Thank you.
thank you.
Estoy preparado.
If I could respond briefly to that, thank you for those comments. That's spot on exactly where this organization has been for the last year. We've been working with our state and federal partners to emphasize those community-centric concerns and to make sure that the people who are in the trenches working on that understand that not everybody is, right? And the concerns have to be socialized in a way where people are comfortable that the impacts are being responsibly mitigated. I think that there are a number of things that are going on that will further inform that effort, not the least of which is this new EIS process, which will be a much more thorough federal process over the longer term. The core feasibility study will be front-end loaded with some hydrologic analysis that will be informed by that. But the work that's being proposed under these conservation measures, the impacts associated with that will be immediate, and understanding that prior to their implementation, we think is pretty important.
Thank you. Welcome, Chairman Torres.
Thank you. Apologize. Being that you're here. Share this very quickly on that. Appreciate your statement, Michael.
Mike.
Yeah. Appreciate your statement, Eric. I think it's spot on that we need to I guess do everything possible to somewhat remove ourselves for the greater good from our own entities, meaning in this case, the Salton Sea Authority, and pride ourselves as one. And I think we're going to get into that type of discussion on the next agenda item as well. But I did want to just ask for our executive director to think through how we're going to engage with all the concerns around the Colorado River, knowing that we were overlooked back in the day. And what are those interim measures? And what are those impacts? And it may be necessary, whether it be through this body, through stakeholder groups, through nonprofits, to start putting together some sort of plan that allows us to hold not only ourselves accountable, but as well the entities that are moving the Colorado River issue. And the only way I think we can do that is we put something on paper. What are the timelines? What are the goals? Potential resources that might be needed? What is it that we're trying to achieve? Knowing that this is a major concern moving forward, in which ultimately is going to impact the surrounding area of the Salton Sea, knowing that there's less water going into the Salton Sea. So I think the more you're able to do that, I think it's going to be better in the sense of having some sort of strategy in front of us that we can point to and that others can point to as well. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Director Perez. Thank you. Appreciate all the comments that are being made. Okay. Any more comments?
Not
And-
at this time.
Okay, and then we will move on to 4C, SB 583. Update on bill language and legislative process, evaluate current bill position.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, this is an item that this board is well familiar with. We had a special meeting a month or so ago to discuss some bill language that we offered to the bill sponsor that would have taken this legislation and caused the Conservancy to be created solely for the purpose of addressing completed projects and the operation.
Patrick, can you turn your mic on?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I apologize.
No worries.
So we had previously presented to the bill author some language to take SB 583 and create a conservancy at least initially, for the purpose of addressing the operations and maintenance of completed projects. The bill sponsor and others who are advocating for the Conservancy felt that it would be better to create one that had some ability to contribute to the implementation of projects. But they were engaged with us in amending language to the bill that allowed for significant input from the Salton Sea Authority and its members and the community writ large. And I think what we ended up with is a much better bill. And the bill is moving forward. And I think what I'd like to do is turn it over to Horacio Gonzalez to talk about the status of the bill, where it's at, and what its ultimate outcome may be.
Thank you, Patrick, and good morning, directors. So yes, the bill was passed out of the Assembly Natural Resources Committee as amended. The amendments are now in print. Now, the next stage of the bill is it's going to be heard by the Assembly Appropriations Committee, and this committee is very much going to look at the bill from the prism of costs. So it's a committee that very much, tries to avoid policy considerations and really just looks at it from the context of how much money is this going to cost the state, and does this make sense from a fiscal perspective. The bill was likely to be heard before the Appropriations Committee in mid-August, as the legislator is now in recess. And then that committee will then make a determination of whether or not they will release the bill forward to a vote of the entire assembly, which would then happen later in September. So right now the bill is before the Appropriations Committee being analyzed for those fiscal costs. And again, we do anticipate a hearing happening mid-August with a final determination of whether or not the bill will be released onto the full assembly floor for a vote around later August is when that determination is made.
So the board took the position of oppose unless amended on the legislation with the amendments to conform to our suggested language. That didn't happen, but it is true that the language was amended in a much more satisfactory manner. Our member agencies have taken different positions across the board on this, from supportive amend, to advocating that this be a 2-year bill. So staff really does not have a recommendation on a bill position. We do think that an opposed position on this bill, given the significant amendments that the author did accept, would not be appropriate, but we are looking for guidance from the board as to what we should do with respect to advocating for this bill on a going forward basis.
Thank you. Do we have any comments, board comments on this?
Yeah, I'd like to, so can you clarify, Horacio or Patrick, for everyone that may be listening, and for folks that potentially might not be following along, what are those amendments?
Sure, Director Perez. So the bill initially, with what the authority had suggested, was that we really wanted to focus the Conservancy exclusively on operations and maintenance of completed projects under the Salton Sea Management Plan, the Long Range Plan, and then the forthcoming financing and feasibility study that the Army Corps is undertaking. The amendments that were taken by the committee and that were eventually incorporated into the bill were a little broader in that, in addition to directing the Conservancy at O&M, language was included that would actually authorize the Conservancy to actually implement projects outright. And that's where the difference was in terms of what the authority was suggesting and what was eventually put into the bill. But in addition to that, amendments were taken, however, to require that the Conservancy, in executing its mission, work in coordination with the authority to ensure that there wouldn't be duplication, and that frankly that there would be coordination between the two entities as the Conservancy was implementing its mission. In addition to that, there was language taken that expanded and clarified that the board would consist of 13 members, with each Salton Sea Authority agency receiving a slot on the board. In addition, there was an amendment taken that required that the Secretary of Natural Resources and the President of the Salton Sea Authority serve on a permanent basis as the chair and vice chair of the Conservancy permanently. So this is regardless of who is on the board, those two slots are always going to be filled by either the Secretary or the President of the Salton Sea Authority. And then finally, there was an amendment taken that required the Conservancy to conduct a strategic plan before it even launched forward. And really the goal here was to ensure that as the Conservancy was getting ready to operationalize, that the right steps would be taken to ensure that there wouldn't be duplication between any of the entities that are working at the Salton Sea, and to really enable the Conservancy to be able to get off of the ground and be successful, with, again, the goal really being that we wanted to eliminate any potential for the two entities to compete with each other, to duplicate each other's work, but instead wanted them to work together. And really that was kind of the extent of the amendments that were taken in committee. And actually, I will clarify, there was one amendment that was taken that very clearly stated that the Conservancy as adopted would not change any of the obligations under existing state law, whether it's the quantification settlement agreement, whether it's the obligations that are required under the Salton Sea Management Program, or any of the existing water orders, or any that might come in the future. So those were the amendments that were taken to the bill.
So we and we're grateful for the senator listening to our concerns and understanding. I think it's a realization how complex the creation of this Conservancy will be, and the unknowns that might take place between now and the time that Conservancy gets legs and becomes operational, especially against the backdrop of the Colorado River negotiations, the feasibility study conversations, and otherwise. So we tried to make sure that we landed this plane with the wheels down, so that if and when it becomes operational, it does so without disrupting the important work that's taking place right now. To that end, we have been messaging that one area of concern we still have is an establishment of bifurcated responsibilities, if you will, between the Salton Sea Authority and the Conservancy, recognizing that the Conservancy would be, in a traditional sense of a Conservancy, more focused on the environmental side of things, ostensibly from the shoreline in, addressing the environmental restoration and mitigation that the state is currently responsible for, and that the authority would be primarily responsible, or a lead agency, from the shoreline out, working with our communities that we currently serve and are elected to represent on addressing and implementing community amenities and community improvements and economic revitalization. And I think that could all be incorporated in the law. I don't know whether it needs to be. It could be addressed as part of that business plan development process, but the conversation is continuing, and I would characterize it as healthy. I would say that the last message that I heard from the chief of staff for the senator is he is looking for some direction from the California Natural Resources Agency. So I think that'll all inform this process also.
All right, so we haven't necessarily defined yet what does it mean when we talk about shoreline in and shoreline out. That's still up in the air, although we have some idea, but not necessarily fully understand what that means. Obviously, that's an area that we need to dig deeper into moving forward. I would suggest, you mentioned around that the different entities sitting here at the table, we're kind of all over the map here when it comes to how we are with this piece of legislation. I would suggest that we just leave it alone for right now until we actually figure out more information around definition, around roles and responsibilities, more discussion. Now, what's missing is the fact that we were supposed to have a stakeholder group meeting by now. There's been conversations one-on-one, and that's fine to a degree. But the challenge with that, though, is that what I've learned is the folks that are meeting one-on-one might say something in one meeting and say another when everyone's at the table. And that's why I think it's important that we all sit at the table, because then we are able to really have an honest, good faith conversation where folks are not saying one thing in one space and then saying another in another space. With that said, I would like, at least for me, I'm not sure about my colleagues here, but I would like to gather and read all the letters that were presented by each entity that's sitting here, that's a member of the Salton Sea Authority, as to what their position is on this legislation. And I'm assuming that in those letters, it would also describe why they're choosing to, oppose unless amended, or full on right, support it, or whatever it is. Because it gets back to the point that Eric and that we all agree to here by nodding our heads, is that where is the common ground for all of us, in which we can agree to move the Salton Sea Authority in the direction in which we all feel comfortable with. Until then, we're kind of like still working in silos, even though we're right here as a Salton Sea Authority. So I think it'd be helpful, at least for me, maybe my colleagues would request this too, is, all the letters that were submitted by the entities, so that I have a better understanding as to why they support or not, and it'll give us a baseline as to what topics of conversation we can have. Now, I'm very interested in understanding a little bit more where IED sits on this issue. I'm interested to hear from folks from IED, read the letters, but I'm really interested to hear from JB Hamby, because I understand from JB Hamby is that there is discussion that he's having with folks up in Sacramento, that he actually wants to do away with the Salton Sea Authority. And that, and as far as the governance structure is concerned, that he'd rather have a couple IED members on that conservancy governance and not have one individual from the Salton Sea Authority or individuals around this table. I don't know how true that is. I want to put that out there. I've been meaning to speak with him, but I think it's important now, and it's time that we have an honest conversation as to where we are. Because if not, this can blow up in our face. So I also understand that he's asking for a 2-year bill. I'm not sure if that's the truth or not, but at this point right now, the way I see it, if things are moving in the right direction, which seems like they are, I would prefer that we move the bill so long as we're able to have these type of conversations. It may need a 2-year ordeal here, but in the meanwhile, it feels like we're moving in the right direction. So those are just a few of my comments. I just wanted to put it out there, and I look forward to hearing from JB Hamby as to what is his position.
Yeah. Madam Chair, this is Alex Cardenas, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've already a couple steps ahead of Director Perez's request. I have submitted a letter and have stated a position in terms of a 2-year bill. IED does not operate in a vacuum. We operate in the best interest of the community, and obviously wear a couple different hats here in terms of a fiduciary under the IID, and also as a major player and landowner on the Salton Sea. So I am in support of Director Perez's request that we do sit on this for now, and also considering the legislative state calendar that they will be in recess for the next couple of weeks. So I think our negotiations are active and ongoing. We, again, are a landowner, significant landowner on the sea, and operations and maintenance and stranded assets, and all those discussions are important to IID, and that's why those roles and responsibilities have to be defined. Both Director Dockstetter and I take our positions extremely serious, and recognize the value that the Salton Sea Authority has provided and will continue to advocate for projects, whether it's, you know, shoreline in or shoreline out. Salton Sea Authority has been a catalyst to setting the table and the menu when it comes to those discussions. So again, there is a letter in your packet regarding IID's position signed by me, so to ensure that there is no ambiguity or any type of dots that people are connecting that are not there. So I would encourage directors read their packets, review the letter, and that way they have a clear understanding of IID's position in regards to this item and where we stand. Those are my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Director Aguilar. May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So I appreciate the comments of my two colleagues on the board. I just putting my Salton Sea Authority Director hat on. It seems to me as though the issues related to the bill that have been communicated to the senator regarding our concerns are being addressed, I think, pretty favorably. And so I just have a bit of an issue with carrying an oppose unless amended label over the future discussions regarding where the bill might come out. It seems as though, based on the response that we've been getting from the senator and their openness to other comments, that I don't really understand why we would not consider an alternative position of support if amended, and send a more positive message to the senator while these other changes are being worked out. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Is that a comment or a motion?
Well, it was an observation and a comment, I suppose. But I certainly would be interested in hearing from my other colleagues before I consider making a motion.
Any board members have any comments on?
Sure, is Ms. Stockstutter on the queue because she's had green light on?
Well, I just don't turn it off. So I just, we're in negotiations. I'm carefully watching. Obviously, the North End is my district. It affects everybody, you know, from my family to my friends. So I'm taking a very cautious, conservative approach to this issue. So that's kind of my comment without really saying anything, right?
I guess so.
So.
All right, Madam Chair. Colleague Aguilar, I think your point's well taken. Look, we had to move in the direction of oppose unless amended, because that was the only way we were going to get his attention. Truth of the matter is, and you know how this operates, Mr. Aguilar, and I'm a former legislator. I know how things work up there. They don't have to listen to us unless you force their hand at times. And believe me, I've had to do this a couple of times, even though they're my friends. I did it to Ben Wessel. Did East to Cheney. It's been done to me too. We think we are listening. Maybe we think that we're in the community and we're hearing everybody out, but sometimes we miss the boat. Bottom line is that we were requesting a conversation with the senator, and there were no calls in return. So then that's when I decided to go ahead and say, okay, County Riverside, we're gonna go and post, because that's the only way I'm gonna be able to get him to the table, or at least have a conversation with him. And it worked. And to the point though, now that there are some amendments. Is it fully cooked? No. Is there more to be done? Yes, of course. Would it hurt us if we left it as is, opposed to this amended? I don't think so. However, I get where you're coming from, colleague Aguilar, because we want to try to maybe look at this from an asset versus a deficit model and saying, okay, in good faith, we're working with you and we're hoping now that we're saying support and needing more amendments or something, however we want to put it, that he does operate in good faith. I think we're getting there, but we still have not had that stakeholder meeting. And that stakeholder meeting was promised some time back now. And so I think it's important that we hold all folks accountable to that stakeholder meeting so we can have an honest conversation about this. If folks feel more inclined to move in the direction, if there's a motion to support if amended, I'm okay with that too, because I think we have made some strides and it demonstrates to the saying of good faith. But if we don't get anywhere with any of that, then, you know, we have to point that finger at us and start thinking about, okay, what's next? So maybe I didn't say anything either.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, please.
I think Director Perez said quite a bit in terms of, you know, the position that I believe the Salton Sea Authority has taken is position of momentum, and the fact that we are engaged in these discussions, and we're being incredibly passionate about understanding roles and responsibilities. We're now talking about shoreline out and shoreline in. You know, that's obviously still needs to be further defined, but it does send a very important message in terms of attempting to define roles. And I'm okay with us, you know, just letting it, or just, you know, us keeping our current position, but understand and welcome the comments from CVWD and our colleague. But I think the Salton Sea Authority has definitely making a statement here in terms of their significance, their relevance, and then their role in this. So I'm actually looking at this as a very positive situation in terms of us being heard and having a very strong voice. I do hope we can have that stakeholder meeting so that we can further define the direction and allow also IID to continue our negotiation. Again, I think this is extremely healthy, but also very encouraged at the momentum that the Salton Sea Authority is bringing to the negotiation. And hopeful that we will find that landing strip and start getting put more shovels in the ground with the sustainability plan.
Thank you.
I could offer, Madam Chair, if I could, that, you know, we don't have to oppose or support the bill, but that we could take a more neutral position, or what they call in Aqua, a watch position, which removes the stigma, if you will, or the hammer of opposition without fully supporting the bill. It may not be ripe for that, but I just wanted to offer that as an alternative. Nope.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, please.
For those who don't know, I'm Thomas Torres, the tribal chairman for Torres Martinez. And with this bill, we recognized when we had the emergency meeting that as it states in there in Chapter 3, the Salton Sea Conservancy, item number C, where it says coordinating, collaborating, and partnering with, you know, tribes in there, which is misinformational and not truthful, because for this bill to be implemented and started beginning of this year, and the tribe not knowing anything about this bill and being excluded, you know, as a tribe, we've been excluded for 100 years. When is that going to end? So as a tribe, you know, we would have appreciated someone coming out and asking us, you know, about this bill, especially under definition where you're talking about the tribe being a federal recognized tribe or a non-federal recognized tribe. So again, when we're talking about the chairman of Southern California, the Chairman's Association and the majority do not agree with the Native American Heritage Commission as far as recognizing non-federally recognized tribes. So when does that end? Is the Conservancy gonna deem themselves a tribe one day? When does it end? So again, when I mentioned amendment that we requested at the last emergency meeting, that be changed. I don't know if that's been changed.
It has.
Okay, well, we thank you for that. But again, going back to coordinating, collaborating and partnering with the tribe, when is that going to start? I know Senator Padilla sent individuals to my office on Monday, but here we are 9 months later after the bill has been started and gone. So again, the tribe's been excluded, and all we ask for is to be at the table, to be included, to have a say in any law that's going to be passed affecting the tribe. So when you're talking about area tribes further down in the bill, what other tribes are you talking about? Because we're the only tribes on the Salton Sea Authority. And if you're talking about other tribes, we would like to have a roundtable. If it's Quechan, Campo, Cabazon, 29, then let's bring them to the table since we're all affected by the Salton Sea. But, don't exclude the tribes, in a bill and try to slide it under the table, get it around us, because we are here, we've been here before the Salton Sea, before the communities were here. So, and we're going to be here to stay. We have land under the sea. We're locked in. It's not like we can pick up and move somewhere else. Again, when I talk about exclusion, we were never part of the quantification settlement agreement. We're never part of the Colorado allocation. We're never part of any of the political endeavors of water when you talk about water. But now when, water is a commodity such as gold, I believe that this bill is trying to be passed in the outside side of the tribe. So again, as the tribal chairman and a director for the Salton Sea Authority, I request that, again, to Senator Padilla, that you come out to our office and ask us, for the consultation. And I just want to mimic, what the governor said. If he truly apologizes for the catastrophes that has been done to tribes for the 100 years, then show that. Secretary Crowfoot, I'm heard that is aware of this bill, but has never, come to light to bring it to our table also. I'm glad that the California Natural Resource Agency has come out, and spoke with us and is starting to work with us. But then again, as far as the Natural Resource Agency, when I talked to them a few weeks ago, they were not aware of the bill and how it was going to impact the tribal liaison and Torres Martinez also. So again, that's just, Madam President, what I want to put down for the record, that the tribe is again, officially requesting consultation on this matter. And I still uphold my vote last meeting to oppose this until it's amended. Or, we need to have some type of tribal consultation, according to the governor's, apology, which he made it. That's my say. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Chairman Torres.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second.
Madam Chair, can I clarify the motion?
Yeah, my motion is to oppose the bill unless amended as requested at our prior meeting.
Okay. Madam Chair, may I comment to this motion?
Yes, please.
Director Tortes, I just first of all wanted to welcome that incredibly impactful statement and want to thank you for making that statement. I needed to hear that, sir, and I really appreciate you making those comments and it really just that's a message that I will be carrying back to the IID, and just want to thank you. We are still in a contrary position to your motion today, and we have taken a position of abstaining, but your message is loud and clear and extremely impactful, and I will be taking that to our agency. And but I am forecasting that I will be abstaining from the motion, sir, just because of our negotiations fluid. But welcome your impactful comments, and we'll be sharing that message. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor and a second. Roll call, please.
President Santianes,
Yes.
Vice President Estrada, Secretary Dockstader,
Abstain.
Director Plancarte,
Yes.
Director Tortes,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
No.
Director Cardenas,
Abstain.
Director Perez,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you.
Colleagues, I have to get going to catch a flight. Great conversation. Look forward to seeing you very soon.
Safe travels. Okay, so on the consent calendar, we have for D, projects update.
So Madam President, I added this as a standing item to our agenda based on requests from several board members that we provide more frequent updates to the board on the status of projects. They'll typically be brief, but I'm intending at least quarterly, if not more frequently, to provide more comprehensive updates on each of the projects. The first one I wanted to touch on before Supervisor Perez got out the door, but I'm about 30 seconds too late for that. One is the North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project. Couple things that are going on on that project right now. One is the access for, we have a design team working on plans for that project. As part of that work, we have been doing some hydrologic analysis and a study of sources of water for the project. We had considered a number of different options, and our primary focus has been in most recent weeks is using some of the drain waters coming off the fields in the Coachella Valley to use as the primary source of water for that project. This week, we received a letter from several environmental groups expressing some concerns about that approach and offering some alternative suggestions as to how we might meet the needs of the project. And that letter is included on our website and in your board packet. And we are right now evaluating that letter, and we'll be collaborating with our state partners as to how to deal with this. I'll point out that this is a demonstration project. There are a lot of things that we don't know as we get into this that come up that we'll have to deal with. This 160-acre project is minuscule compared to the other works that will need to take place around the sea. So if this problem manifests as a particular problem on this 160-acre project, it's going to be a much bigger project. It's going to be a much bigger problem at and around the sea, and it's going to cause us significant challenges in putting projects on the ground. So I'm hopeful that we can find a common sense solution to this. Perhaps the alternative strategies being proposed will bear fruit and we can move this project forward. But I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. The other project I wanted to bring up was the Desert Shores project. We met last week with the Geologic, who is a firm engaged by Imperial County to do geotechnical work. Imperial County needs to complete geotechnical work in order to complete their CEQA analysis on the project. We had previously intended to rely on well data from old CVWD wells in order to complete the hydrologic analysis for CEQA, but we were unable to access that information. I understand from CVWD that data is either not available or not useful. And because of that, we're being compelled to get higher level of technical support for the project, some drilling activity that's going to increase the project scope by several $100,000. So we are working with the Bureau now to get authorization to initiate those tests to complete the CEQA that will further inform the completed project cost so that we can be certain that we have enough funds to complete the total project. We expect to meet with the Bureau representatives and the county representative, working with the state. I believe we have a date set for that early next month to have that analysis. Once we have authorization to move forward with the completion of that testing, we should be able to finish the CEQA in short order and have a more definitive time. The plan beyond that would be that the Salton Sea Authority would contract with a project management firm who would do a design build project, and we would fund the one project and move forward from there. So we should be in a position to do that once we have the CEQA completed. That completes my project updates, and I'm welcome to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the board?
And I see none online, Madam President.
I would just like to ask about, I kept hearing the stakeholders roundtable. So how would we be able to get that moving? Or is that something that the Salton Authority could lead? Should it be the tribe?
Is that for these projects?
That's for the, I want to go back to the conservancy,
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
the SB 583.
So let's go back there and say that, again, I reached out to the Senator's Chief of Staff and offered to help them pull that together. They originally had indicated that they were going to try and do something in July. I think that they're now considering August. I don't know if Mr. Gonzalez has any other information on that, but it is something that we're advocating to assist with. And any and all of our member agencies could be a part of pulling that together. But Mr. Gonzalez.
No, Patrick, the last we heard from the senator staff was that they were shooting to have something in August, a stakeholder gathering. I will follow up with them right after this board meeting to see if they've made any progress on identifying a date and location for that stakeholder gathering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go to 4E, ratification of Board of Directors Committee assignments.
Madam President, every year the board seats a new president and that president appoints members to the board. What you did this year is that you made those appointments in advance. All of those appointees have been contacted as to their interest in serving in the positions which you have appointed. We haven't received any indication from anyone who has a problem in accepting those appointments. And so we're just asking that this board ratify the appointments that you're making to the board committees.
Okay, so do we need a motion on that then?
If there's any discussion or a motion.
Is there any discussion?
Sure, I'll just ask if there's a list available so that I can understand who's on the.
I believe it's in the memo in the board packet. I believe it has all of the committee members.
And I see the memo now, but yesterday it was not you couldn't click on it yesterday, correct? Am I incorrect in saying that?
Depends on what time yesterday.
Ah, I'm an
I think
early
that's-
girl.
I think that's my
Thank
problem.
you
I
very
also
much.
Not
Okay.
seeing that.
Cause I see it now, but I did not see that yesterday.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Could I have roll call, please?
President Santianes,
Yes.
Secretary Dockstader,
Yes.
Director Plancarte,
Yes.
Director Cortez.
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Cardenas. Director Perez. Motion passed.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to reports. 5A Federal, 1, Federal Activities, Lisa Moore.
Madam President, I believe Ms. Moore had another commitment, and I believe her report is in your board packet.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to 2, U.S. Bureau of Reclamation.
I do not believe Mr. Brooks is with us today, and we were told that he had no report.
Okay, thank you. And then so we will move on to State Advocacy Report, Horacio Gonzalez.
Hi, directors. I wanted to focus briefly on the final state budget that was adopted and signed by the governor into law. During the last month's board meeting, I had noted that the legislator had voted to restore $50 million in Salton Sea restoration funding that the governor had proposed to shift over to a general obligation bond. Well, the final budget that was adopted and signed into law by the governor only included a restoration of $24 million. with the remaining dollars shifted to a general obligation bond that is going to be put on the ballot at a future date. So just to clarify, the way that it worked out was that the final budget effectively pulled back and shifted 89 million that had been approved in last year's budget. And then what it did is that it shifted 54.5 million from this year's budget for a total shift of 144.5 million that'll be put on as part of a general obligation bond. Now there's two bonds currently moving through the legislature that are likely to be combined into the final bond that'll be put before voters. And it's worth noting that one of those bonds does have a $400 million set aside for the Salton Sea. So it not only captures the shifted funds, but it actually increases the amount that would ultimately be directed at the Salton Sea. And from what I understand, Mr. Garcia in particular has had very robust discussions with his Senate counterpart, and there is a desire to make sure that both bonds reflect this higher appropriation for the Salton Sea, and that it be reflected in the final bond. Now, both of these bonds are, if they move forward this year, are going to be receiving policy hearings when the legislature comes back from recess, which will be the latter part of August. And if that happens, then the bonds will be moved forward for a final vote of the legislator before being sent to the governor. Now, there has been some uncertainty regarding whether or not the bonds will move forward this year or whether they will be pushed off to next year, because the governor's office has yet to provide direction on what they ultimately want to see in the final bond. They have put out concepts, but they haven't really released language. So that's really the uncertainty right now. But again, there are two bonds moving through the legislature, and at least right now, we anticipate that they will receive a hearing towards the latter part of August before being moved forward. So that concludes my update.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to 5B3. Actually, 2, State of California, Mr. Miguel Hernandez, Public Affairs Officer, California Natural Resource Agency.
Good morning, buenos dias. I'm Miguel Hernandez with the Salton Sea Management Program. I have a brief update for you on the efforts taken by the Salton Sea Management Program. Just to mention that the work continues at our veg enhancement projects, the 3 sites near Bombay Beach, also 2 sites near Salton City, Clubhouse and Tullywash. And the Bombay Beach area, where earlier this year seed was brought in to germinate. However, the temperatures back then did not allow for good germination. So we're trying out the weathers now. It's warmer. Actually, we started trucking in water into the site to see this seed to germinate better with warmer temperatures. So that actually started about a month ago, and that continues. So hopefully we'll see some seedlings, sprouting out there during the summer, and we'll see a better plants growing out there during the fall. So just to brief you on that, also we have informed the community about this project. Perhaps you've heard of it, you've seen presentation about this project, but we also want to make sure that our community is informed about this project, what's happening with the grass bells, what's happening with the seeding, what's happening with the planting, and pretty much what's going on with the project. We have a fact sheet that's been going out there for, I'll say, about a year or so. We have our partners on outreach helping us get the word out about this project and other projects that we're doing as part of the Salton Sea Management Program. So just wanted to keep you posted that we're still working on those projects, and we're bringing water to get those seeds germinating. Regarding the community needs strategy document, that's been an ongoing effort that started a couple of years ago, being led by a Better Work Group. That strategy document has taken a lot of input from community members, not just from this last 2 years, but Better Work Group has taken the lead on reviewing a lot of historic materials or comments as part of Salton Sea Management Program, and even part of the community perspective or community concerns in the lithium aspect. They've also taken that into consideration to develop this strategy document. So we're pretty close to having a public draft. So just wanted to give you a heads up that we're aiming to have this document ready before the end of the summer. And we'll have a public comment period for about 60 days for folks to continue to chime in into this strategy document. We'll have public meetings. We'll get some PSAs going. We have an outreach plan that we've been working on, which in fact will be, and this kind of helps me transition to my next point, which is the engagement committee, which we don't have a solid date for that meeting just yet. We'll still need to check with our co-chairs and the rest of the committee members. But one of the main points that we will be discussing there is the outreach plan for this document. How we're gonna roll it out, how we're gonna get the public input that we're still seeking after this 2 years, and continue to make a more robust strategy document that will help us not only inform the Salton Sea Management Program and what can be taken by the program, but also help other partners and for them to see what the community concerns are, community needs, which we have a broad idea, but this document can help us kind of solidify and elevate the concerns of our community and the needs of the community. So again, that document will be hopefully released before the end of the summer. The engagement committee will convene to discuss that as part of, and also the outreach plan. Also seeking support to be able to present some of that during a Salton Sea board meeting, and also open up for opportunities for comments or feedback that we can continue to gather. So we have an ambitious, but also the plan that's necessary to continue building up on this strategy document. So just a quick update for you all. And just on a personal note, today is the one of the hottest days of the summer. So make sure you stay hydrated, drink enough water, electrolytes, or whatever you might need. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
And Madam Chair, may I add one additional update from the state? So I did want to just clarify a little bit of the numbers that were being presented by Mr. Gonzalez. So in the governor's May revised budget, there was a proposal in our budget to shift 169 million to a future general obligation bond. And then as Mr. Gonzalez described, the legislature proposed 50 million of that be reinstated. That did move forward, and we can look at that language together, Mr. Gonzalez, after this meeting. And then there's that 24 million that you're referring to is an authorization of Prop 68 funding that was already passed originally in that proposition to authorize that to be spent for Salton Sea program.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to 5B3, Salton Sea State Recreation Area Update on Activities. Andrew Alberg, Interim District Superintendent.
Okay. I believe that he does not have a report. He is I don't know if he's online with us. Do you know if he's online?
No, they're gonna report in September.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted. All right, so we'll move on to local, Salton Sea Action Committee, Wanda Laura.
Madam Chair, a little mic check. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Muy buenas tardes, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us to present to you all. And special congratulations to you, Madam Chair. Very proud of the fact that you are the first woman chair of the Salton Sea Authority. Que viva la mujer. Today is National Fortune Cookie Day, National Moon Day, National Lollipop Day, and it's also International Chess Day. And also, Agustin informed me that it's Oye Como Va, Carlos Santana's birthday. SAC met last week. We were fortunate to have Samantha Arthur join us, and we were introduced, and hopefully it'll be the start of some bigger and better things that we can jointly work on and work through and work with. Other than that, we are still continuing to work with UCR and Audubon, and we haven't really been in touch with Mr. O'Dowd, but we're continuing to work on those field trips, those bus tours that we talked about. Met today with Jim Curtis. He's a community services manager in Indio. He is really excited that he pretty much said Indio can fill at least one bus a month. So we're going to be reaching out to more folks like that in the future. I've been honored to be appointed to the Eastern Coachella Valley Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. We had a meeting last, Tuesday, this past Tuesday, where I met a gentleman, Nestor Velasquez, out of Montana. He owns some land in North Shore, loves the desert, wants to keep his land, wants to see a return on investment. He's very interested in what's going on around the sea. The reason I bring him up is because there are hundreds of Nestor Velasquez's around the sea that want to know more about what's going on with the restoration efforts and all the activities. So we're going to be reaching out to those folks as well in the future with these bus tours, inviting them to join us. I'm very proud and excited and honored to be here at the Bombay Beach Community Center. Great venue to have meetings, future meetings with stakeholders and some of you all to come on and visit. A lot of great things going on, and I'm here with some of the directors of the Community Services District, Pedro Fusco, Candice Youngberg, Kim Hernandez, and General Manager Agustin Sadora. So really the bulk of my report today is going to be asking them to provide you with some information as to what's going on here at Bombay Beach. So who wants to go first? Candice?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Out here, we've been blessed to have our new roads finally put in. We have a lot of projects that we're working on, including our park upgrade. We're gonna get a splash pad, and I guess like our really big concern is with the restoration and the involvement with Salton Sea is the water issue here, because everything seems to cut us off, and we don't ever really get involved with any updates or notifications or reach out to ask how our community would like to see things happen, or how the current plans would affect us. And so we would really like a lot more of that. Reach out for the community itself.
Agustin, you want to add anything to it?
Good morning. My name is Augustine or Augie Sedora. And just a couple of comments. Somebody had mentioned that there is a lot of outreach going to the local communities, and you mentioned Bombay Beach. When the Salton Sea Management SSMP folks came down beginning of the year, they kind of explained to us how they had coordinated with all the local folks. No one knew what the heck all those hay bales were doing 20 yards away from here where we sit. There was no coordination. Well, all we saw was a lot of straw flying around the community, and then we saw these truckloads of hay being unloaded right across the way. Come on, be honest, reach out to the community itself. If you've never been here, don't tell us that, yeah, we know exactly what it's like, because you haven't been here. Come here. I understand there's some tours coming up. Come on down and take a look and see the impact some of your decisions make on taking out the water. One of the plans I understand is to shrink the perimeter of the Salton Sea about 3 miles all the way around. What's it going to do to the rest of the population, even to the north of us in Palm Springs area, where you got all this pollution and the dust? We've got enough problems with the health that's being impacted here. I'd like to take in consideration that, not the money, not all the water, but the health of the people. There's some environmental and very heavy health impacts that come to us. Thank you.
Anything else?
Hello, my name is Kimberly Hernandez. I'm on the board of directors for Community Services District here in Bombay Beach. Anyways, I think one of our major concerns kind of mirrors, what Chairman, I believe this Torch has said about, just not being involved in the planning. I mean, literally, I can walk outside my door and a block down the street is the Salton Sea, and so like,
for us to just not even be considered in this decision-making process is, you know, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And, you know, a lot of us have reached out on our own and have tried to, you know, kind of put our word out there, but it seems to fall on deaf ears a lot of times, you know, like, I mean, so many services are not provided to us, you know, and that's aside from this, but it just seems like Bombay Beach is overlooked a lot of times, you know, and we would just like to be considered. And also, as far as the board of directors for if this bill were to pass, I'm not really sure who's going to be on that board of directors or how we're going to vote for that or what, but I do believe that it would probably be very smart to try to involve people from all communities in that board of directors that decide, you know, what happens with these funds and things of that nature. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. So part of the big part of the work we do at Salton Sea Action Committee is education and outreach. And this is an example of what we do. And in the future, we'll be going out to the different communities around the Salton Sea and you know, doing similar things in our reports in the future. So that concludes our report. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you so much, Mr. O'Dowd, and we'll be talking again soon. Have a blessed afternoon.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to executive director's report and comments.
So I think Juan is just a regular Huell Hauser. We have to sign him up to go door to door for the Salton Sea. I think that's a program. I'm on board for it. Madam President, I only have one thing that I wanted to touch on during my report, and that is the, you know, in line with what Mr. Delara is working on, and that's the public relations, community outreach and engagement. As this board knows, we have been looking for a public information officer for some months now. We started this process over a year and a half ago, working with the state to create this position and opportunity. We did interview more than a half a dozen candidates, and we continue to look to fill that position. We hope to do it soon, but it is a difficult environment to find people in. And so I'm hopeful that by the time we get back here in September, I have more important news to report in that regard. Other than that, that concludes my remarks, but I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions, but prior to just a little shout out to my Bombay Beach people that I know several of
There
those
you go.
people. And so we appreciate your comments. We do want you included. We do want you to be informed. So thank you, everybody, for your comments.
Thank you. Okay, so if there is no further comments, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have roll call. Motion to adjourn.
So is there any opposition?
Okay, is there any opposition?
And we're adjourned.
All right. Looks like no opposition. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Here.